Quentin Tarantino snapped at a female reporter from the New York Times who asked why Margaret Robbie wasn't given more to say or do in the latest film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Ooh, what a horrible, horrible man. I'm sure that this reporter being female is obviously relevant, and I'm sure that Quentin Tarantino doesn't have a history of shutting down dumb questions. Let's take a look at exactly how savage Mr. Tarantino got and how valid the question was in the first place.
Quentin, you have put Margot Robbie, a very talented actress, actor, in your film. She was in with Leonardo in Wolf of Wall Street, I, Tonya. This is a person with a great deal of acting talent, and yet you haven't really given her many lines in the movie. And I wondered, I guess that was a deliberate choice on your part, and I just wanted to know why that was, that we don't hear her actually speaking very much. And Margot, I wanted you to also comment about being in the film in this part.
If there's one thing I could tell you about Tarantino in interviews is he smells bait. That even though the guy never graduated high school from what I can remember, or he dropped out, he's not dumb. He sees this from a mile away, and we can see that this question is obvious bait. But let's see how Mr. Tarantino replies. As they report, he savagely snapped at this female reporter. Which, by the way, given the dumb question, I fully support.
Well, I just reject your hypotheses.
The best part about it was literally all of their faces just laughing. You see a big grin on Margaret Robbie's face. You see Brad Pitt smiling. They knew.
I always look to the character and what the character is supposed to serve to the story. I think the moments that I got on screen gave an opportunity to honor Sharon and the lightness. I don't think it was intended to delve deeper than, like Brad also mentioned, I think the tragedy ultimately was the loss of innocence, and to really show those wonderful sides of her.
And seriously, the entire time you can still see Brad Pitt smirking there because he just knew what a terrible, terrible, uneducated, leading trap question that was. Because obviously, the implication was that Quentin Tarantino was keeping a woman down. I don't know what the implication is. Now, you could just say, well, she was just asking a question, and that's fair. She's allowed to ask that question, but Tarantino doesn't owe her the answer she wants. And that's really where all this narrative is now coming from. And we're going to take a look at some of the backlash. But of course, it's not like Tarantino has ever shut down dumb questions in the past. Like when he was asked if what was happening in his films, because his films had so much brutality in them, if it was responsible for the same things that happen on the street, just like the whole video games cause real life things question that was going around in the past.
But why are you so sure that there's no link between enjoying movie violence and enjoying real violence?
I'm going to tell you why I'm so sure. Do not ask me a question like that. I'm not biting. I refuse your question.
And there's, of course, loads of history of Tarantino just not giving the time of day to horrible questions. And if we look at the response to this tweet, obviously you see some regular faces here. Lol, what? He didn't snap at all. It really must suck to run a site like this. You have to lie about stories just to get people to care about the content you produce. Dang, son. Here's Crip Daddy. Is that your definition of snapped? I would love to hear how you would describe what my dad did to my mom when he drank too much. Yikes. I mean, he's also snapped at male interviewers who ask questions he finds stupid. The fact is, he said, I reject your hypothesis. Shows a lot of restraint. I mean, the question was obviously a bait, but look at these articles now. Here's the article. Quentin Tarantino snaps at reporter when asked about Margot Robbie's limited role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Would you, I mean, when I think of the word like snapped, that isn't anywhere near what I think he did. He just was like, nah, dude, not gonna answer that question. Just like, I disagree. He didn't rant. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't cut her off. He was very respectful, but that isn't stopping the narrative. You can see Tarantino snapped at a female reporter from the New York Times who asked why Margot Robbie wasn't given more time in his latest film. I reject your hypothesis, he said at a press conference. Robbie plays Sharon Tate. The film takes place in the 60s Hollywood and focuses on a struggling actor named Rick Dalton and his stunt double Cliff Booth, who are DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, as they make their way through a changing movie industry. At the press conference, Tarantino scowled, looking visibly upset at a question by New York Times reporter Farah Nayeri, but Robbie tried to tactfully answer. That was just his face. That's how Tarantino looks. Sony Pictures' Once Upon a Time in Hollywood premiered at the Cannes to strong reviews on Tuesday night. Imagine that, Tarantino making a good film. Shocking. Tarantino opened his press conference by addressing the public's continued interest in Charles Manson and his cult. I think we're fascinated by it because of the end of the day. At the end of the day, it seems unfathomable, Tarantino said. I've done a lot of research on it. He was able to get these girls and young boys to cement to him seems unfathomable. The more you learn about it, the more information you get. It doesn't make it any more clear. It makes it more obscure, which is why everyone's so interested in about it, of course. And of course, DiCaprio may be an Oscar-winning actor, but he said he understood Dalton and his fear of failure. I immediately identified with this character, blah, blah, blah. So good things, but that's the title. But, it's picked up by other places, not just like Variety pushing this narrative. Quentin Tarantino irked by question about Margot Robbie's limited role in his new film. The idea that it's limited implies that there is some correct amount of time and correct amount of dialogue that any one person should have. Obviously, let's cut through the BS here. This is about the male actors getting more screen time than the female actors, okay? And at the end of the day, you, a beat reporter who is forgettable, is asking the artist about why he made decisions in his art. That's like going up to a band and say like, dude, I mean, how come that solo wasn't 2 measures longer? Like what? It seems like you purposely cut that short. Why did you do that? What was going through your mind? It's actually worse than that because in today's media, there's more of an implication that he was keeping her down. That's what the question was. And just like back in the day, again, when people are trying to pin on Tarantino that his movies had too much brutality in it, and then that was making people make decisions out on the street, even back then, that's why I like Tarantino so much. He said at that time in that interview with that other moron who's made a lot of Hollywood actors angry, he said, I'm not responsible for what some wacko does on the street. And he's right. Just like the same people that try to say to me, well, you covered this journalist and what they said was wrong, and then they got a bunch of backlash, so you're responsible for it. No, they are. It's called individual responsibility. Just because I'm covering it and somebody got backlash doesn't mean I'm responsible for the backlash, because at the end of the day, had they not done the stupid thing, I wouldn't have had any topic to talk about. Just like this other reporter, which I may make a video about next week, reaching out privately to ask me to call off the dogs and said I was responsible for it, and just wouldn't understand that I would have made the video in the first place if they didn't slander and make libelous statements about me. But that's neither here nor there. Again, Tarantino facing criticism from who? From who? CBS? Like, Tarantino cares. His movie's going to crush it. It's going to win all the awards, and he doesn't care. He doesn't need the media. Facing criticism after a female reporter. And notice, again, why does it matter that the reporter was female? It was a dumb question. Act about Robbie's lack of lines in the film, and a journalist pointed out Tuesday during a news conference that Robbie had a limited role compared to her male lead counterparts. She then received a terse reply from Tarantino, the Pulp Fiction director. New film revolves around fading television actor and his stunt double trying to achieve fame in the 1969 LA. Again, question Tarantino role despite the star being a star in her own right and one of the leading names cast in the 145-minute film. So cue the articles that say, the woman only had 11 minutes of screen time, and that's a problem. I don't think Margaret Robbie, she's not worried. Okay, she got paid, she's fine. Tarantino absolutely replied with the correct answer to her dumb question. You want to talk about Tarantino's history of females? How about let's look at the entire Kill Bill series, okay, where there's a female lead the entire time, and most of the villains were female, all right? So I know, and Tarantino knew where that question was going. It was as obvious as the day is long, and he shut it down in the appropriate manner. I appreciate it, and he made me even more of a fan. I wasn't really that interested in this particular film, but now I feel like I'm going to see it. Normal people 1, NPCs 0. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'll talk to you again real soon.